Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. The heat of summer can stress tomato plants. Today we are learning how to keep production going all summer long. Also, we will be planting fall vegetables in the garden. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Elena Hackerty. Elena is the owner of Tomato Baby Company, and Mr. D will be joining me later. Hi, Elena.
Hey there.
It's good to have you back in the Family Plot garden.
Back to see the baby tomatoes again.
Back to see the tomatoes you planted. So what do you think so far?
I think they look good.
Think they look good?
They look real good.
All right, so it's been terribly hot here in Memphis this summer. So let's talk about summer tomato care. So where we need to start with that?
Well, I understand these are on a drip hose, drip irrigation,
Okay.
and they look pretty great.
They look pretty good?
You're getting fruit. Some of these can be picked ahead of time when they're still a little bit green to
Okay.
ripen indoors. That might help a little bit with the ripening. I see one that in the summer they're quick to go from almost ripe to way too ripe.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you can pick them when they're maybe almost done, and even one that's still a little bit green on the green side. You can pick something like this. It doesn't just take it inside and set it indoors.
Okay.
Block the upside down like that.
Okay. Upside
And,
down. How about
well,
that? Okay.
there you go. And they don't have to be in the sun. Just put them in.
Okay.
It can be dark. Doesn't matter.
All right.
I've got a few spent blooms that didn't get pollinated. Looks like it's just the heat.
Right.
They won't pollinate when it's above 90.
Right.
The pollen inside the flower, they're self-pollinated. So they've got both the female and the male parts. They just have to move the pollen inside.
Okay.
That's going to be, I saw a bumblebee here earlier that was doing some good deeds, but you can go through here to sort of help them along with the heat.
Just tap.
Tap the blooms, shake the whole thing, grab the plant and shake it. I've seen people do, and that'll help because generally they're wind pollinated as well as the insect pollinated. I understand they're getting watered every day, but they look pretty good. There may be some blight. Might be a good time to, of course there's a lot of heat stress too, there might be a good time to start some of your chemicals on if you want to go that route.
Okay.
For prevention.
Okay. And some of those chemicals are, of course, chlorothianil.
Then your other field with mancozeb, but they're preventative.
Right.
So maybe just heat stress that's causing them to look a little bit yellowing at the bottom.
Okay.
So
now, would you
maybe now
remove
wouldn't
some
be
of
bad
those
to
disease
treat.
leaves?
You
Could you do that?
You could, just for good practice, and discard them outside the garden.
Okay.
You want to look for hornworms.
Those things are hard to find.
Especially after the rain, they're hard to find.
So it's interesting,
but
you
they
said
will,
after the rain.
After rain, you can expect them within about a week.
How about that?
And the ground's got to be soft, and because they intend to eat and then go down in the ground to pupate. So the hawk moth or hummingbird moth will come along and lay like 1 to 3 eggs. So generally, if you see one, you've got more.
Wow, okay.
But be on the lookout. They're hard to see, but you can definitely see when the damage comes along.
Oh, you can definitely see that.
You'll still have the stems, but you won't have any of the leaves.
Right.
Now you can treat those, and that's an organic treatment. It's BT.
Okay.
When the worm eats it, you don't have to worry about them eating anymore. So it'll kill them.
Right.
Of course, we pick them off too.
Sure.
That's the quickest way.
Sure.
Now, there's one hornworm that's a good hornworm that you do not want to kill.
It's a good hornworm?
Nobody thought I'd say that. If you see a hornworm that looks like it's got granules of rice sticking out of its back.
Ah, right. I
That is
know
a
where you're going. Okay.
Parasitic wasp.
Right. Yeah.
Leave that worm alone. It won't eat anymore. Won't harm the plant at all at this
Okay.
point. And you want to breed more of those wasps.
I got
And
you.
they'll go out there and kill them for you.
Okay. It's the braconid wasp. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Little
about.
wasp, I guess.
Okay.
And keeping up with the fertilizer.
Okay. So what kind of fertilizer would you use for this time of the year? Yeah.
It would be the same all the way throughout,
okay.
just reading the directions, whether you do I generally use the higher dose, so I only have to do it every couple weeks or so.
Okay.
But just keep them fed. You can't do anything about the heat. They'll show some leaf curl sometimes, just from stress of the heat, but it'll get better as it cools off.
Any other diseases? Anything else we should know about?
No, I think they look
that may
really good.
happen? Okay.
A lot of people get blossom end rot,
Yeah.
and that is, they'll say a calcium deficiency, but it's really and you don't have any of that. And I think it's because y'all are watering every morning, and it's just maintaining that moisture so they don't go without the calcium intake from like the ground being too dry to take it up in.
Right. So what if you have some like cracked fruit?
Okay, generally that's from when it rains, then we'll get too much rain, it'll have a growth spurt.
Okay.
And the calcium, or just the normal growth doesn't keep up with the kind of water that we get.
Right,
But we
gotcha.
can't do anything about that.
Okay.
But you can mulch, and just what you're doing with the morning watering, with the irrigation, just being consistent. And probably after a rain, look for the cracked fruit,
Okay.
knowing that happens. And usually you can harvest those, and they might even ripen a little bit before that you can hold on to them for a few days.
Okay. You mentioned mulch a couple of times. So what type of mulch do you like to use, or would you prefer?
There's so many methods.
Okay.
Some people use dried hay bales, or straw.
Okay.
I use pine needles, and I put newspaper up under them,
Ah,
and that way it just keeps the weeds out.
Got it.
This
Okay.
tomatoes being an annual, I mean, we only have to keep, around here it's Bermuda,
Yeah.
but you just have to keep the grass out of there for a few months. So I try not to use, a lot of people use black plastic, and it makes it easier.
Right.
I'm using generally my garden area the same spot every year. So I try not to use any plastic that's going to be trouble to get up later.
Yeah.
But putting newspaper down, it will till in and add to the soil.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so it's beneficial.
yes.
Actually.
And pine needles work great.
Yeah.
They dry out, and that just keeps the soil level with your mulch. It being dry is going to keep the wet and the disease away from your plants.
Ah, that's good. That's what you want.
Right, and the watering at the bottom, like you've got it, that keeps you from getting the plants wet, which is encouraging the disease.
Yeah, we definitely want to get especially the bottom foliage wet, for sure. All right, Elena, well, we appreciate that.
Great.
Yeah, again, that's summer tomato care, right?
Yes.
And so far, so
And
good,
they
like you
look
said, right?
great.
So far, so
Look
good.
great.
All right, so thank you much. We appreciate that.
Okay.
This is a planting of the old flowering begonia, which is an annual that's been around for many decades. Often you'll see it advertised for use in sun or shade, and yeah, well, but maybe. It actually does a little bit better in some shade, and this is a really good example right here. This patch that's doing so well and lush and covered with flowers is actually getting some shade from this overhang during the midday sun and the afternoon sun, which is the hottest part. Although it does get morning sun, which is ideal so that it will continue to flower well. If you look at this area, it's certainly baking in the hot sun for longer parts of the day, not doing as well. The temptation might be that you water it more heavily then. But in fact, begonia is a plant that suffers from too much water. So you don't want to keep that soil too wet. You will rot the roots and lose that planting. So be sure you check to be sure that it does need watering again. You also might want to check out some of the new forms that have the larger leaves and are really beautiful additions to the landscape.
All right, Mr. D, let's talk about fall vegetable gardening. What do we need to know?
Well, you need to know that gardening is a year-long affair. It's not
Yes,
just
sir.
a springtime affair.
That's right.
And an efficient gardener will after he harvests a crop of corn, they'll take the corn out and they'll plant some fall crops. There at University of Tennessee has an excellent publication called Fall Vegetable Gardens, and I encourage you, anyone interested in gardening, to grab one of these publications, because not only does it have a good chart that tells you when you can plant and what you can plant. You can see I have things highlighted here that are saying we can plant until September 1, and that's about now.
Okay.
But this guide is a recommendation for the entire state of Tennessee. On the back page of this publication, it has a neat little table that tells you the average day that an area receives the first 32-degree temperature.
Okay.
So I guess that would be the first frost. And Memphis, where we are right now, is November 6th.
Wow.
And if you look down through here, that is by far the latest date of a first frost. So that tells me that in Memphis, I can add a couple of weeks to that September 1 date and not worry about it a whole lot.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you happen to be in Allard, Tennessee, September the 19th, so in a couple of weeks, you guys are going to get a frost, and
about that.
forget about the September 1 date. It's not going to do you any good.
Right.
So just
Already
keep
too
in
late.
mind the date is an average across the state of Tennessee. It's very important to look at, you know, Memphis, November 6th. Hey, Newbern, where my hometown,
yeah,
October
see, right.
13th. You know, and it's a real handy tool to use.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this corn out,
All right.
and we're going to try to get rid of some of these weeds that have grown up in
There's
here,
a lot of spurge in there.
and do a little bit of light tilling. It would be nice if we had a tiller, but this is a really small area, and I think we can take care of it with hand tools. And we're not going to do the entire area. I think we're going to do just the first 4 feet across here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to plant cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli, lettuce, and spinach.
All right.
The first 3 that I mentioned, the cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli, need more room than the spinach and lettuce need.
Okay.
So really we need about 18 inches apart, and I'm gonna, so that we'll have enough room, I'm gonna go ahead and make my little hill,
Okay.
and we'll plant several seeds in each hill, and then we're gonna need to thin them down to 1 or 2.
Wow.
So there's where we're gonna do our first one. In the fall, you probably need to plant deeper than you would plant in the spring, and all of this is in this publication. This soil is very moist. It was irrigated before we're planting, which is a good thing to do. You definitely are going to probably need to irrigate, and you can irrigate before or after you plant, but it's better to irrigate before you plant in the moist soil. That way you don't have to deal with irrigating after you plant and forming a crust.
Right.
This
Makes
soil
sense.
has really good organic matter, so water holding capacity shouldn't be a problem. So I'm going to put one about here, and then one about here. So we're going to utilize all of our space here.
Okay.
I'm just basically doing this to mark it more than anything. And that Bermuda grass sprig, we're not going to stand for that. You got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Bermuda's gonna love this plot after a while, though. We're gonna get it out of there.
Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the other 2 rows.
Okay.
They're going to be, it's going to kind of be a little grid, kind of like the corn that we had. So that's 3. You know, I've been called an artist with a hoe. Not really.
Not really.
Fairly dangerous, as a matter of fact.
All right.
Okay, let's plant. Okay, what do you want first? Cabbage, broccoli, or cauliflower? Which do you prefer first?
Cabbage, man.
Cabbage?
Like cabbage.
Okay. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Oh no, where is it?
Remember? Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's right there.
Yeah, that's where I pulled that Bermuda
Yeah.
grass out, wasn't it?
It was. I think you had another mound in here.
How about you? There's plenty.
All right.
Little seed goes a long way. Okay, next, broccoli or cauliflower?
I'm gonna go with the broccoli.
You'll definitely have to do some thinning. Now that leaves
Cauliflower, right?
cauliflower. Lettuce or spinach?
Lettuce. Do that.
Okay. Okay.
You see it?
Three to 6 inches between plants.
3
is
to
what's
6
recommended on the
inches.
lettuce. Okay.
All right. You should remind folks, you don't have to plant those seeds that deep, right?
You don't have to
Yeah,
plant them
little
that
small
deep, but they
seeds.
need to be deeper than in the spring.
Right.
And the average rule of thumb is 4 times the diameter of the seed.
Right.
So a seed that small, you could throw it on top of the ground and drag a harrow over it or something and be all right.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So what's the last one?
Spinach,
Ah,
Popeye's favorite.
Popeye.
Do you think that really worked for kids
I don't know. I tried it
because of Popeye?
because of Popeye.
Okay, I guess it does then.
Yeah. I thought I was strong anyway when I ate it.
These seeds are a little bigger.
They are.
3 to 4 inches between
3 to
plants.
4
So I
inches,
planted a little
right.
thicker.
All right.
More
Volunteer.
volunteers. Yeah. The seed that I planted was 2017 seed. So they're a little old, not real old, but I planted them a little thick
Mhm.
to make up for any poor germination. So when they come up, and I expect that more will come up than we need,
Okay.
so you're probably going to have to thin everything. Everything that I planted at too thick a rate.
Okay.
And you need to do that when you're putting seeds out. When you're planting transplants, you don't necessarily have to do that.
Sure.
Transplant's already up and going.
Right.
But firm that a little bit.
Yeah.
This Bermuda grass is
Oh,
ready
it's-
to go. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
come back with
it's
a
gonna jump.
vengeance. It sure is.
It's gonna take off. So you have to deal with
Right.
do some weed control out
Right.
here. But now we got a fall garden. Set back. If we don't get a rain in a few days, you probably need to irrigate it.
Mhm.
If you do get a rain, let Mother Nature's taking care of it for you.
Take care of it for us.
And see what happens. Mainly look out for insects because they're hungry this
Yes.
time of the year.
Yeah.
And
And the Bermuda again, like we
the
mentioned.
Bermuda.
Yeah, several
Weeds and insects are probably going to be your biggest problem.
times. Right. All right, Mr. D, we sure appreciate that demonstration.
Okay,
Now, let's
good
go
deal.
let's go get some water, man.
Let's do.
Sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hydrate.
I've got a trick for you today. You'll notice in the summer you don't get many fruit. When the temperatures are hot and it's above 90 degrees, there's a good chance your tomato plant just can't have fruit pollinated. Today we're going to use a toothbrush, and you just go to the blooms and buzz them. The plants are self-fertile. You just have to move the pollen around. That's what your bees are usually doing for you. And then it's going to blur. You don't have to get each individual one. Just put it on the stem and make them all vibrate at one time, and you will get fruit. You can do this probably every other day for and run through all the blooms every other day, and you'll end up with plants loaded full of fruit.
All right, here's our Q&A segment. Y'all ready?
Ready.
All right, these are great questions. Here's our first viewer email. Hi, what can I do to get rid of moss in my lawn? Thank you, and this is Suji. So Suji, we got the lawn guy right here, right? And Mr. Booker T. Lee. So how do you get rid of moss? So first of all, what causes moss?
A lot of times, sometimes people like moss.
Okay, yeah, some people do, right?
they can't. They stop trying to fight with it.
Right.
They say, well, the moss don't come in. It look good in my yard, so I won't let it stay there. But what causes moss? A lot of times you got poor drainage. Another thing could be the soil pH in there could be changed some, and also getting a lot of shade. But look for the poor drainage, one of the thing, and a lot of shade. So if you got a lot of shade, you want the grass to grow up, whatever you want to grow there, you might want to limb the tree up some. And also you want to do a soil test to check that soil pH to get that line right in there. That'll stop moss from growing also too. But a lot of people like moss. Now you begin to look good in your yard. So I can't fight it. I can't deal with it. Only let it grow and everything. So and it look good in your landscape. So if you just a little small spot, let it go. Let it go. Hey, let me have moss in my yard. Yeah, but so that'd be really good. But shade and poor drainage.
And poor drainage. Okay. Elaine, anything you want to add to that?
Possibly trench off if you've got some water collecting. I've got some water collecting between
drainage?
roots.
Okay.
And but I haven't been meaning to and haven't done it yet. But get a shovel and just sort of trench a little ditch off so you've got some drainage.
Okay.
But I like moss.
You like
You like moss? See, she like moss.
I don't have to mow it.
You don't have to mow it. That's fine.
Okay, that's one good thing. You have to mow it, yeah.
Yeah, don't have to mow it, but yeah. So there you have it, Suji, and a couple other things I like to mention too as well. Of course, you can do core aeration, right? You said light penetration. You got to get air movement. The question always comes up: can I use a chemical? Chemicals are only temporary. So there's an iron sulfate that you can use, and there's potassium salts or fatty acids that you can use as well. Read and follow the label. But those are temporary. Temporary. So the cultural practices that you all talked about is what I would do first. Do those first.
Let the moss grow.
And just let it grow, right?
Let it go, man. Let the moss have its space. Let it have a little space in your yard and everything. So
Put some stepping stones to
The
there if
stepping-
it's
yeah,
wet,
that's
because it's gonna be
wet.
wet and damp.
Be wet and damp.
Stepping stones.
Yeah.
Stepping stones.
And live
There
it.
you have
Let
it.
it go. Yeah.
Not to mow.
So thank you for that question, Suji. There you go, right? Here's our next viewer email. Great picture here as well. I need an urgent diagnosis. This is the first time I've ever planted black-eyed peas. They came up quickly and looked great. But yesterday, when I was checking my garden, this is what I saw. When I researched it, I kept coming up with curly top. That scares me because they are near my peppers and tomatoes. Will curly top affect my nearby plants? So what do you think about that one, Elena? We'll start with you. Curly top, black-eyed peas.
If they're getting it, then your tomatoes and your peppers would be very susceptible to it.
Okay.
And you can definitely tell when the tomatoes and peppers get it because they've got a mottled growth generally at the top where they're starting to grow
good.
incorrectly.
Right, so you see the puckered leaves,
yeah.
right? Kind of discoloration. Could be a virus.
Virus, okay.
Right? Of course, the leaf hopper actually transmits that virus. So what you have to do is make sure you don't have weeds,
Weed.
you know,
Yeah,
around
weed
the area,
area,
right?
yeah.
So that's something else I would look at. And then resistant varieties. I always like to come
Always
back
good,
to that,
always
right?
good,
So it's
yeah.
always good to go with resistant varieties. So yeah, be careful, like you said, Elena, because yeah, your tomatoes and peppers are in the same family, right? So they can definitely be susceptible to the curly top. So yeah, the research was done here. Yeah, it's a good picture.
Yeah,
They did some
look good,
research,
yeah.
right? But yeah, we're thinking virus, maybe a little drift. Control those weeds, so you won't have those
So
leaf hoppers.
So you watch it for a while, but
Yeah, watch it,
if it gets worse, it probably won't produce.
It probably will not.
You probably have to
I
pull it
I
out.
agree with you on
Take it
that.
out in there.
Right. So you might have to just consider doing that somewhere else.
Just where,
Right.
yeah, plant it somewhere.
Yeah, put it somewhere else.
Anything you got a virus, be careful how you take it out of the garden too. You might
That's
want
right.
to put it in a bag or something when you move it out of the garden.
That's right.
Where you have it located, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Practice good sanitation, folks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the question. Here's our next via email. I've heard about milky spore to control Japanese beetles. Does it work? And this is Seth on YouTube. So I'll jump in here first. So the milky spores, right, has microbial activity. The thing about milky spores is this. It's not 100% effective. It does kill the grubs of Japanese beetles,
Okay.
but you have to get good coverage right?
Okay.
And it has to be watered in.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's best to maintain a good turf if this is in a turf situation. At the end of the day.
Right.
Right.
Then you need good, strong, thick turf in there.
Right.
That'll fight a lot of stuff off, your
Right.
insects and everything in there.
You know, because the population of Japanese beetles varies from year to year, right? So your turf can actually deal with, you know, having a couple of, you know,
Yeah.
grubs in a certain area.
It's an area, yeah.
Right. But yeah, milky spores can be used. It's expensive, but it's just not 100% effective.
Okay, then. Like I said, that you have a good thick turf and everything, with cutting the right height here, that's keep a lot of the insects to go away in there. So
Right.
just do that. Like I said, mixed spore will work,
It'll work.
but it's not a, no,
Yeah, it's just not 100%.
100%, yeah.
Right. You know, I don't know if there's just anything that's 100%.
yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
it's just, you know,
Yeah.
it's something that can be used.
Yeah.
There's some other insecticides, you know, systemic insecticides that can be used. But this is specifically about the milky spores. But yeah,
And let you know when to put it down too.
yeah, do read and follow the label. You have to know a little bit about the life cycle of Japanese beetles.
yeah.
Right. So in the Memphis area, you want to control Japanese beetle grubs. It's going to be pretty much August to about the end of September,
yeah.
October,
Yeah,
somewhere up in there. So
middle
that's why
October,
life
yeah.
cycle is so important. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much, Seth. But your question about the milky spores, yes, works, just not 100% effective. Read and follow the label and know the life cycle of those Japanese beetles. All right? So, Elena, Booker, that was fun. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about tomatoes or planting fall vegetables or any other gardening topic, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.